Sentire Media.
Welcome to the Stop Italian Sounding podcast, uncovering authentic Italian food. I'm your host, Robert Campana, and join me as we delve into the rich heritage of genuine Italian food, exploring its legends, history, and traditions. Through important tips and insightful interviews with industry professionals, you'll gain a deeper understanding of authentic Italian food. Welcome back, everyone, to the Stop Italian Sounding show, uncovering authentic Italian food. So, as we prepare to celebrate the week of Italian cuisine around the world from November 16th to November 22nd, I'd like to briefly talk about today the quote unquote debate that Italians often have about Italian cuisine, and that is, does Italian cuisine even exist? Well, in my opinion, the question of whether Italian cuisine truly exists as one unified concept is actually a really interesting one because of Italy's unique history and all the regional diversity that it actually has. People who argue that Italian cuisine doesn't really exist often point to the fact that Italy, as we know it today, didn't even come together as a single country until 1861. And for centuries, it was made up of various kingdoms and republics, each, of course, with their own local traditions, ingredients, and flavors. So each region developed these unique culinary identities that are really shaped by geography, history, and whatever ingredients were available locally. For example, let's say Sicily's food has a heavy North African influence with ingredients like saffron, dried fruit, and even couscous sometimes showing up in the recipes. A reminder, of course, of the island's history under Arab rule. Meanwhile, up north, in places such as Veneto or Lombardia, the food leans more on butter, traditionally speaking, of course, and dairy products, which are less common in the south, where olive oil and, let's just say, spicy peppers are the way of cuisine down there. And the geography alone can make it feel like there's no single Italian cuisine because the ingredients vary so much from place to place. You have things like polenta and risotto in the north, thanks to the corn and rice that grows there. And then along the coast, we have things like seafood. And in the mountains, you find more preserved meats and root vegetables. So when you look at it this way, it's easy to see why people say Italian cuisine is more like a collection of regional traditions rather than one unified thing. But personally, I think there's a strong case for saying that Italian cuisine does exist as a cohesive tradition. Across all these regions, you find this consistent philosophy around food that values fresh, local, and seasonal ingredients and is celebrated for simple preparations that highlight natural flavors. Italian food is famous for this less is more approach. Think about a classic dish like pasta al pomodoro, which just uses tomatoes, olive oil, basil, and salt. That's it. But the focus is on the quality of each ingredient. The idea of doing a lot with a little even has a name in Italian, which is often referred to as la cucina povera or cuisine of the poor. I like to call it la cucina intelligente or the smart cuisine because it's all about making simple, high quality ingredients shine. And that philosophy is something you see everywhere in Italy. Another thing that I think could tie together Italian cuisine is the common set of ingredients and cooking techniques used across the country. Pasta is a perfect example. It's eaten in every region in Italy, though it might be made a little differently depending on where you are. In the north, pasta might have eggs and flour, while down south, it's usually semolina and water. So the texture is different, but it's still pasta. Pizza is another good example. While it's definitely done differently in places like Naples versus Rome, it's still something everyone in Italy thinks is distinctly Italian. Plus, certain techniques like slow cooking sauces or hand making pasta are common throughout the country, creating a shared quote unquote language of cooking. Even the way Italians eat feels cohesive. So, traditional meals, as most of you know, usually follow this multi course format, starting with the antipasto, which is the appetizer, then the primo piatto, which is the first course, usually a pasta or risotto, then the secondo piatto, which is the second course, usually a meat or fish. And then we have the dolce, which is the dessert, which you find almost everywhere in Italy. And this structure isn't just about the food, it's a reflection of Italian values around social connection, relaxation, and of course, family. And Italians treat meals as social experiences, as many of you know, since you've been to Italy, where you're supposed to slow down and enjoy rather than rush through the meal. And to me, this kind of culture around food adds to the idea of a unified Italian cuisine because it's something that people across the country share, even if they're eating different dishes. And let's not forget the global influence of Italian cuisine. Foods like pizza, pasta, espresso, and gelato are enjoyed all around the world and recognized as distinctly Italian. And this worldwide recognition makes Italian cuisine feel like a cohesive identity, something that goes beyond just Italy's borders and is celebrated as a symbol of quality and, of course, tradition. And honestly, I think Italian cuisine is more than just the sum of all the dishes. It's definitely a way of life and a huge part of Italy's national pride. Whether you're in a small village or a big city, food in Italy is about connection. Of course, connection to family, connection to friends, and to the land, of course. We've talked about many times the concept of terroir. And Italian cuisine isn't just a collection of recipes, it's an expression of Italian culture and identity that's held together by many shared values around the country, even if the ingredients and flavors vary from region to region. So, of course, while one could argue that it's just a bunch of regional cuisines, I also think that the common philosophy, shared staples, and cultural pride make Italian cuisine feel like a cohesive whole. And for that reason, I'd like to wish everybody a happy week of Italian cuisine or buona settimana della cucina italiana. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the stories of authentic Italian cuisine. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more insights and interviews. Also, feel free to reach out with your thoughts or questions on our social media channels at Stop Italian Sounding or on our website, stopitasounding.com. Grazie a tutti e alla prossima.
Sentire Media.
Hey, podcast producers and show hosts. Do you want to join a podcast network that celebrates all things Italian? At Sentire Media, we understand the allure of Italy and its unique culture. Our devoted team of hosts and producers are all driven by their shared passion for Italy. And we work tirelessly to create the best lifestyle podcasts and content that will whisk you away to the very heart of Italy. With us, you can savor the mouth-watering flavors, get lost in the stories from the past, break down the cultural barriers, and truly immerse yourself in the vibrant traditions of this intoxicating country. If you have a great podcast idea or are already in production and would like to join Sentire Media, head over to sentiremedia.com, that's SENTIRE media.com, and find out how to submit your show.